Guys, hang on, this might look intimidating at first, but this file is one of the most comprehensive meta breakdowns I've ever seen, so in this video we'll look over this information to find little known advice to help you stay ahead when you make your endgame decisions. First, I want to give a huge thanks to Pathseeker from my Discord who thought of this idea and built it from scratch. It's actually really easy to understand. There's some useful sheets here, but let's focus on the basic hero rankings first. So the rows are the heroes and the color coded for factions. And what Pathseeker did is he went over tier lists, guides, and data files, but the biggest use is Reddit to bring us all the relevant information in one place. So the columns are different rankings and information for each hero. For PvE, you have White Sushi's tier list, you have my tier list rankings, and you have Shazam chapter 35 usage stats. Very useful for the endgame. And for PvP, we have Legend Championship win rate percent. The values are the amount used, so as you can see, Anarchy here was used 21 times, out of which he won 11 times. For SI importance, we have White Sushi benchmarks. I'll add information from my own SI tier list, which I'll link below. And for furniture, we have Artie's PvP and PvE tier lists, which are very nice to have. So just for the benchmark, let's start by looking at Talene. As you can see, she's ranked the highest on all metrics. As for PvP win rate, she has 56%, which is very high considering most everyone is using her. At 3,600 usages, you see many Talene versus Talene matches which draw the win rate toward 50%, so 56% is really high. Starting off, let's sort these spies factions. So for models, we can see Sophia, Citrana, Nomisu, and Screg are the most useful in PvE. Surprising to see that Skriath falls off in the very end game. So Skriath, both for PvP and PvE, that could be either because what he does becomes less useful, or he wasn't fully discovered yet, a theme that will return throughout this video. Sophia seems to fall off in PvP in the highest ranks. She's not bad by any means, especially in the mid game, but in the end game, highest levels of PvP, her matchups I guess are pretty poor. An honorable mention for endgame Mauler PvP would be Anarchy. He sees little PvP usage to decent success, so good to keep an eye on. Next, Celestials, Hypogeans, and Dimensionals are overwhelmingly strong, easily the best in the endgame. They see a lot of usage both for the highest levels of PvP and PvE. Interesting stats here would be Khazard being much better in campaign than he is in PvP, as you can see. Perhaps this is because he's so fragile. His kit is very strong, but in Legend Championship you don't know what you're up against, which makes him a very risky gamble to take. Mihira also seems underwhelming in PvP. Perhaps she scales best against strong enemies. Arthur also underwhelming, but that makes sense in PvP with burst meta. He doesn't get to enjoy his defensive utility as much as he otherwise would have. As for a positive mention, I'd like to talk for a second about Flora. Where is she? Flora is really strong, like way stronger than we thought, especially in the endgame, both for PvE and PvP. Perhaps she might even take Athalia's priority. Lastly, we see many of the Celos Hypodeans demanding investment and taking priorities in SIs and furniture for the campaign and King's Tower, but apparently in PvP some of their furniture is underwhelming. For example, we have Khazard, Mihira, and Arthur that might be less worth it to invest if you're focusing on PvP. Moving on, because there's so much to see, Graveborn, I think Feral is the single biggest thing here. So Feral seems to fall off in endgame PvP. It's one of the most surprising I've seen, but perhaps a lot of new counter heal options introduced more competitions for him. Some of this data is also before his buff, so it might be better than displayed here. Next, we also see Isolde never used in chapter 35. Maybe it's because of his scaling falling off, or maybe it's because he wasn't discovered yet. Thorn going up in defensive usage. That's what I like to see in the campaign. Really nice in tandem with Flora, very fun to see. Theowen lastly is very interesting, so she seems to see some PvP success. This could be her countering energy cores, but you also gotta remember the bias towards stronger players who already have her, so she's one to keep an eye on. Lightbearers are one faction that's in for surprises. Rigby, for example, my man. One hero that's little used in PvP, but it seems like some players use them to incredible success. Oscar also seems to have great usage in the campaign, but don't be fooled for PvP, because PvP there's not enough data to determine what's his win rate. Quick reminder, range stats are pretty buff, so it's surprising even any usage, but we'll have to wait and see. Cecilia has an interesting niche in PvP, but the data seems to dislike it so far. Maybe we didn't completely figure her out, or maybe it's just not as strong as we initially thought. She sees some god comp usage. Rosalind, Moran, and Gwyneth are the ones that take investment and seem the most consistent, and Hendrik seems to be more useful in the endgame for PvE than Estrilda is, so very interesting to see perhaps her falling off in those Gwyneth sets. Wilders, my guys, are slowly becoming the best faction. Their PvE is incredibly prominent, with some heroes like Nomura who take investment and others like Tassi who can do it without even complete furniture or SI. Their PvP win rates are really good, even for example as a hero that's accessible without much investment even to those newer players, but still has a positive win rate across many usages, so very strong as we thought. Check out my AFKArena video. Kaz is one that sees some use and it's pretty surprising, at least for me, but I personally attribute her success to very strong players who like her, but who knows, maybe I'm missing on her, maybe I'm sleeping on her, and maybe she's undiscovered. There's so much other useful information here. For example, you see compositions including single examples of proven endgame comps for Riz, Soren, and Twisted Realm, as well as some synergies. Furnitures including all different stats they give. Haste is the best, guys. SI cost is a useful thing to remember. Gear upgrades, bounty refresh values, very useful. Feature unlocks through the progress in the game, so you can see over here, and specific chapter 35 comps that Shazam has pulled the data for. But a full review of all of these I live for another day, so I'd like to seriously thank Pathseeker from the Discord for all his incredible work, as well as the people you see here on screen for the rankings and data. Subscribe so I can afford getting Pathseeker some coffee, and I hope this in-depth video was useful for you guys. Let me know what you think of it below.